and welcome to Into the Abyss
Camera's over here, big
our
boy.
Saturday night horror movie club. Thank you, Chuck. I'm sorry. I am Thomas McDonough.
C.W. Breyer.
Kevin Lucia, and our special guest tonight is the inimitable Bob Ford, author of Burner, his most recent novel, and so many other wonderful things. How about here we go? Here we go. There we go. There we go. There it is.
Plug.
And it says here that Tom is the best host of Into the Abyss, so he's also a man of great taste. Bob
Yes,
is.
that's true. That's true.
He's the
Yes,
man,
yes.
Chuck. He's the man, Bob.
And the truth of it is we just keep Tom around for the eye candy value, so we know that those.
This brings the views.
That's right. Yeah, his face is the moneymaker, so we know that. All right. So someone want to ask Bob to introduce himself, and
Okay. I'll just say the same thing Kevin just said. Bob, will you introduce yourself?
Bob, why don't you come and introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, thanks guys for having me on. I've seen the past episodes. I'm really stoked to be part of it. It should be a fun night. My name is Robert Ford. I'm the author of a handful of novels, a ton of novellas. Most recently, as you said, it's been Burner. Currently, I'm working on some stuff with John Bowden.
I know that is.
Knuckle Big Bang series. This is called Black Salve, and John and I are closing in. We're real close to the ending of this one. Let's see. I should have a novel out this year called Dead Pennies, and I'm working on a new novel called Domino right now. At least that's the working title. So, yeah.
Very nice.
Very cool. Well, as always, is an integral part of our experience here at Into the Abyss. We always like to share the libations that we're enjoying this evening. I am actually driving home tonight, so the only thing I'm having is energy drink after energy drink. So why don't you guys go ahead and share what you guys are enjoying.
All right.
We've got quite a spread here. We're turning into very quickly liquor connoisseurs here on this show.
Well, we'll start with non-liquor. Just to celebrate, we bring in a lot of the Southern Tier distillery selections, but they have their new flavor, the Irish Cream Stout, Southern Tier Brewing Company.
Honor of St. Patrick's Day.
In
That's
honor of
right.
St. Patrick's Day.
That is it.
But
I had
what
that
I'm
a couple days ago.
Nice. I've got here, I brought along with me from the Polish restaurant, I have some raspberry wine, which is fantastic, and some Laird's Applejack. So apple cider turned into hard liquor there, and
Cider whiskey.
Favorite
Pretty
of George
much.
Washington.
yes, George Washington loved it so much, according to them, that he actually asked me to
right.
it to him. So
That
it's been
sounds good.
since 1698. So
What do you got, Tom?
No, I was just kind of surprised Chuck didn't get pulled over with a car full of alcohol.
Well, as long as he's not drinking it.
You know, we're filming from my house, so options are like pants. They're unnecessary. I'm having some Sam Adams. I'm also
To
having,
clarify, he does have pants on. Just to clarify. But anyway, continue.
leave a little
For
some
now.
imagination.
For now, he has pants on.
Well, I'm also having I'm going through my whole thing. I got Kraken Attacks New York rum, really dark rum, got a nice sweet taste to it.
tastes like the streets of New York.
There you go. And we got some Screwball peanut butter whiskey, always a pop one, and God knows what else. I mean, I'm the one who gets to actually drink and get silly, super silly tonight. And it's kind of funny. Kevin's like, "Oh, I'm driving. I can't drink. We drink all the time and drive to your place."
That's true, but my wife is a liquor detective when it comes to smelling it on people's breaths. So,
I just make sure I front load and have time to recover.
put it this way, I would like to retain my drinking privileges at home. So tonight I'll be
All right.
fine.
Well, how about let's go to the stream. What else is it? What does everyone have tonight?
Yeah, Bob, what do you? Oh my God!
I'm taking. I feel bad right now. I'm not catching. I'm drinking Corona. I'm just drinking beer.
That's an old classic, man. Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no. If Lucia was here, that would be a whole different story.
Oh, yeah. We may have to, if we have time, we may have to do a special Scares the Care edition of this at the hotel. That
We might.
That
we
could
might.
be interesting.
That is an amazing idea, actually.
Yeah. So
So
what?
we're supposed to refer to it as St. Patty's Day.
St. Patty's Day. Okay.
St. Patty's Day.
All right. So what? I know that Brad had there you go. All right. Dragon's milk. That's some good stuff. Okay. What else we got out there drinking tonight? Anyone else? Yeah,
Pepsi,
Pepsi.
there you go.
There you go. All right. Very cool. And Mountain Dew. All right. Yes. Very cool. All right.
Brand of anonymity.
So here's what we're gonna do. So what we do now is I have pre-picked 6 movies.
We want to talk about stuff coming up on the horizon?
Oh yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I'll
Go ahead.
mention a couple things. One, first of all, April 1st is
Scares That Care AuthorCon. Yes.
So we've talked before about Scares That Cares. They're doing a special author-centric event down in Virginia coming up April 1st weekend.
Yep.
So Kevin and I will both be there.
You'll be manning your table, and I'll be manning the cemetery dance table.
Yep.
And I do not know when the last time cemetery dance was actually at a convention, so that's pretty exciting as well.
Yep.
So,
And then we're working with Cemetery Gates Media to try and get Sticks and Stones out before then. So we're hoping to have that out, that new short story collection.
because they have a table there as well. Cemetery Gates Media does.
Yep.
So there should be copies of Liminal Spaces there, Bob, because
Yes.
Cemetery Gates Media will be down there. So,
Good.
All right.
You're talking about Six of Stones, right? Yeah. Also, too, I don't have too many official announcements yet because they're not still sort of under the wraps. But as we may have mentioned last time, I recently took the position of the paperback and ebook editor at Cemetery Dance Publications. So we're starting a new line there. Differentiating it from the special edition line. Basically, I guess I'm basically in charge of the small press now. The small press arm of Cemetery Dance. And I've got some really, really great authors lined up. I got some really exciting news that contracts have been signed.
Hold on.
Yeah, he's taking a drink. So contracts have been signed. I can't really say a whole lot about it. I can say I just announced that we have a novella coming from James Cooper in June called The Man in the Field, which is a great work of folk horror. We also, next February, we have an original novel coming from Philip Fracassi, Gothic, which is a really, really, really excellent novel. We got a bunch of other things underway, so it'll be.
It's tough knowing things now.
Oh, it's so tough. Like I got, like all I can say is the one thing I want to talk about. It also has movie adaptation stuff tied up in it, and I'm just like it's killing me not to say anything about it. But I mean, it's not. I can, but we're waiting for like the right moment. So there's
Wait for the right moment.
Yeah, there's no legal things. We're just waiting for it all to come together. So this what we do next is what we're gonna do is I've got 6 movies that I watched earlier today, like 5 minutes of each, just so I get a feel of them. Because remember the very first time, was it the very first time we tried this or the second time we tried it?
Maybe second time. It was pretty early.
The second time we did this and we didn't do it live, we watched a movie and we had our choices were 31 by Rob Zombie, and then this other one called Robert and the Toymaker. We don't like to talk about Robert and the Toymaker. That movie
We absolutely do like to talk about it.
Like 16 sequels to or something.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
This was like sequel number 7 or
I
something
guess.
like that.
And what the movie promised us was murderous puppets killing Nazis. We're like, all right. And we do like a random choosing, and it shows that. And then we didn't get any Nazis killed by puppets until like the last 30 minutes of the movie.
The last 5 minutes.
The last 5 minutes, and all we had was like all these terrible monologues.
We are not so different, you and I.
These evil philosophical commandants giving these terrible monologues. So today, what I did is I previewed the movies, and my requirement for putting them on the list was, okay, there has to be a horrible death in the first 5 minutes of the movie. If there's not a horrible death in the first 5 minutes of the movie, I'm not putting it on the list because we do not need a Robert and a Toymaker, scenario. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to share with you the. Okay. So.
We're going to do the interviews, right?
That's halftime.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Halftime.
That's
We'll do
halftime.
an interview with Bob.
All right, so here's the movies that I previewed this afternoon. Next time, Tom was asking for more modern horror, so I said, okay, next time when we get together in April, you can preview the movies and you can offer the selections. But I
All
previewed
right.
the movies today. I have not seen any of these. Tom did say that he has seen 2 of them.
Yes.
So I previewed the first 5 minutes of The Mutilator earlier today, the first 5 minutes of The Incubus, I, Madman, Final Exam, Pieces, and The Prowler. And what we usually do with this is we usually have a little wheel decide thing here, so you guys can all see that. And we just let fate choose the movie that we're going to watch. And then we'll watch the movie, and our general standard procedure is we'll stop about a third of the way through and give our beginning thoughts. Then about halfway through, we'll kind of do a halftime, and that'll be the time where we'll give Bob Ford the floor, and we'll ask him some questions about his novel. He'll tell us, about it and things like that. And then we'll continue on with the movie. And depending on how the night goes, we may stop almost toward the end, or we may plunge on to the end. Because I think last time we were running a little bit late, so we just plunged right on to the end to finish it. Yep. A couple notes while we're doing this is we found that you guys on your end are going to want to keep your mics off during the movie because we have had in the past where there's a little bit of feedback. If your mic is on, then it's filtering back to us the movie like double laid over on top of itself.
If we get a back feed from you guys, Robert the Toymaker will show up at your house.
but he won't kill you.
Yeah.
He'll just bore you for the next hour and a half with philosophical Nazi monologues about how you and I are not so different.
And then kill you right when you're starting to get comfortable.
That's right, yeah. Bored. Then he'll kill you in the least dramatic fashion possible. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it's a free-for-all in the chat during the movie. We had a lot of fun with it. I have chosen a specific schlock value because I've realized I'm very much underviewed when it comes to 80s horror. And also, we're here, we're drinking, we want to have fun. So are we ready? Are we ready to spin the wheel of fate?
Spin the wheel.
Spin the wheel of fate. Here we go. Pieces! All right. This should be an interesting movie because the tagline for Pieces is "It's exactly what you think it is." Across the top in bloody letters, it's exactly what you think it is. Okay. All right. So I'm going to hit stop on the recording so we can get ourselves set up with the movie. And I always like to do a quick check just to make sure. The very first time we did this, almost a year ago now, we recorded a whole night. It was you and I and Auto Club, and then who else was also here? Anton Kanker and Joe Sullivan. And then the next day, we put the footage together, and it didn't record any of the audio. So I like to check along. We should be good. Yeah, I know, right? We should be good because I already did a test recording earlier. So here we go. I'm going to stop the recording, and then we will jump into Pieces. Okay, so we are about 30 minutes into Pieces. And why don't we give our guests an opportunity to chime in first on their thoughts on the movie
so they can start high and then crash.
So, Brad, what are you thinking of Pieces so far?
I think the commenter on IMDb that's saying it's a great comedy horror is right on target there.
How about you, Autoclave?
Yeah, Can I predict? Am I allowed to predict?
Go ahead.
I think we all know what's
I think it's the
I'm
Dean.
as old as I am.
Yeah.
I'm almost pretty sure it's the Dean. I'm questioning like what the trigger was though, because he's obviously gone like this whole time. This murderer has gone this whole time without like doing anything. But that mirror smashing must have been the trigger, you know. But where was he?
Yeah.
You're setting your expectations awfully high if you think there's an explanation for why things happen.
And I don't think any of the college students would have access to a big freezer.
Or have,
yeah, the micro fridge killer.
or have a extra chainsaw lying around their dorm room.
Pull out the 6-pack that fills up the entire fridge so you can fit a body part in.
And for
there.
those who didn't know, the groundskeeper there, who the cops arrested, Paul Smith, he played Bluto in Popeye with Robin Williams.
Mhm.
So he's
Did he
just
really?
mean. Yep.
So I looked this up online, and of course, Captain Loomis also mentioned that it was filmed in Madrid. So it is a dubbed film, except for
It's half dubbed. It's like
it's
you can
half
tell
dubbed.
certain people.
Well, yes, that as my brief exploration into the foreign films, like it's a weird thing. Like the guy with the black hair, the one cop, he's in a ton of '80s horror movies, and he's an American. He's the only one.
Oh, yeah.
He's the only one who's not dubbed. That was like I watched this Italian film once that had John Saxon in it. And everyone's dubbed except for John Saxon. I'm like, what is John Saxon doing in this Italian film? Like, he just apparently wanted to buy himself something nice that month, so he was in this
Had a
movie.
car payment.
Yeah. So, Bob, what are your thoughts so far in Pieces?
Yeah, here's the thing. I have a serious love-hate with a lot of European horror. It either hits the mark dead on, or I absolutely and utterly loathe it. Now, I've seen, I'll admit, I've seen Pieces before. And honestly, I'm actually really kind of stoked that that's what we ended up watching tonight. I look back, I try to break down whatever it is. You know, if it's something like this where you say if certain things are over dramatic, it's dubbed, it's whatever. I try to look past all of that and just look at the core story itself. And honestly, I try to look at it as, okay, honestly, I'm looking at it as, what can I possibly steal from this in the future? That's what I'm looking at.
Yep.
Is there something at its core that I could go, holy hell, that was an amazingly cool twist or something like that. Can I utilize that later?
Here's a twist: doing exercise in high heels,
There you go.
like they're doing right now.
I mean, so far we kind of got the idea that it's sex equals death. That these
Which one of you guys said chlorine does that? Which one of you guys said that? That ruined me badly. That was perfect.
I mean, I don't want to say anything, but it's not as great as movies make it look to be.
Well, I get it.
I think I now know more about you than I ever really wanted to know. Thank you very
don't-
much for that time.
I
I
should
am
tell you about
now.
the bearskin rug tie.
And I'm not drinking at all tonight either. I have to listen to this sober. Oh,
You
anyway.
will remember
That's
it in the
what
morning.
you get.
Now, I just want to point out the whole thing was the mother attacked this kid when he was putting together a nude puzzle,
Yep.
and I think now
It's
the
about
kid,
as Freudian as you can get.
yeah, the kid now equates sexiness with evil. So I mean, you had that one girl's lying in the park with her skirt up, and then you had the one girl's like, I want to do it underwater. And then you have the one girl who just screams, I'm a victim here, saying there's nothing better than having sex and smoking pot.
I disagree with you.
Oh.
It's not sex equals death. Yes, it's huge because mommy came and attacked him, but you notice he's putting the puzzle together and then chopping girls up. He's trying to recreate his dream woman
Now,
to match the puzzle picture.
The dream woman who looks like his mom.
Well, no, he's got the puzzle
Well,
and he's doing the...
That's a little Freudian too, but
I
hey.
thought it was just because jigsaw puzzles suck. I don't know.
I
Maybe
mean,
I'm wrong. I
you
don't
lose
know.
that last piece and now I'm going to kill a bunch of people.
Of course, and I just realized now where your paw is, where the play button is right on that woman's crotch. So, I mean, you want to give that a tickle now, Kevin?
Sure. I do. Before we continue on, I want to echo what Bob said, and I'm sure that Chuck probably feels the same way. That as
You don't know me.
as writers, we're like we cannibalize pretty much everything we come across. You know, we're watching a award-winning, moving emotional horror film or a period piece or schlocky 80.
Are you talking about Whack Off Island again?
Yeah.
Mermaids.
Anything at the end of the day becomes fodder. That it could be the campiest movie you've ever seen, but you're like, ooh, I like that little, and maybe it'll just send you off on writing stories.
Yeah.
So yeah.
My thought is I'm surprised how much plot and valid dialogue there actually is in this movie. I thought it would just be pure schlock. They actually tried to make a decent movie.
Here's the thing, and this is what, like I said, this is what's kind of blown me away in my exploration of 80s horror, is there is some, like, I don't know if anyone's ever seen the movie The Suckling, but
Suckling.
Bob has seen The Suckling, haven't you?
I think I might have blacked it out in my memory, but yeah.
Here's
I
the
think I
premise.
have.
The premise is The Suckling. You have a brothel and an abortion clinic all in one place. You know, there's one-stop shopping. And
Like a green laundromat and liquor store.
this girl who's pregnant, her boyfriend takes her to the abortion clinic. She doesn't want to have the abortion. He gives her a roofie. She passes out. They abort the fetus, and you can only make a movie like this in the 80s. And they, of course, they
I know
flush
this.
the fetus down the toilet, and of course, there's random nuclear waste there because of the 80s. And the nuclear waste irradiates the dead fetus, turns it into like this monster that encases the whorehouse and starts killing people off one by one. That was really trashy. That was really, really bad. I'm continually amazed. You sit down and watch this 80s movie that's schlock, and you think, oh, this is going to be terrible. But then it's not really. I mean, it is, but it's embracing it's terrible. What is it? Blue Gillian of Cemetery Dance is the best thing I've ever heard about 80s horror. The 80s horror is a rock party, and everyone's invited. So, yeah.
You might not hook up with the girl you want, but you hooked up nonetheless.
All right, so I'm going to click stop on the recording, and we will continue on with pieces unless anyone else.
And then we'll do Bob's interview at the halfway point.
That's right, yeah. And at halftime, we'll give the floor to Bob Ford. We can talk about his novel Burner. All right, let's hit stop. Take it away.
Welcome into the Abyss, and we are here with Bob Ford, author of Burner and many other works. But tonight we're going to be focusing heavily on Burner.
Yes,
the
we
main
are,
part of the
yeah.
interview. Burner is the latest novel by Bob Ford, and we are so happy to have him here as our guest tonight. Hello, Bob.
Hey, thanks guys for having me. This has been a blast so far.
So we are watching Pieces, which he's said he's seen before. We're enjoying that, but we want to spend the next couple minutes chatting with Bob. And wanted to just give you the chance to just tell us a little bit of background on Burner, where the idea came from. And I know you wrote that into at the end of the book. You have some descriptions of where the idea came from. But why don't you go ahead and let us know what Burner's all about and where the idea came from?
Sure. Burner was the core concept of Burner actually came from I'll show you. When I lived in Philadelphia, I worked at a video store for a while, and I picked up a scrapbook that the former owner left behind. Now, initially, the guy was really into theater and plays and just pop culture type of things, so he would cut out newspaper articles that were really interesting. And toward the end, he quit his job and left this behind. Now, toward the end of his scrapbook, then we started getting the things, or newspaper articles like Stephen King and certain articles like that. So I sort of picked it up because I'm a huge King fan. And I started, actually, here you go. There's one right there. I don't know if you guys can see this.
Yeah, I see him.
Kind of like that, an old Stephen King article. So I started, when I lived in Philly, started cutting out just strange, weird newspaper articles that would happen in the Philadelphia Inquirer. And I came across an article one day about a Japanese wife whose husband had a heart attack. And it was only, the article was literally a paragraph and a half. Like it was very, very tight. And in the hospital, the Japanese woman, her husband, on his deathbed, said, "I'm sorry." And she had no idea what the hell he was saying sorry about. But she came to realize he was never going to the job that he told her he had been going to for the last 20 years of their marriage. And that was enough. I never saw a follow-up article. I never saw anything at all. But it stuck in my mind for such a long time. And I usually get my titles first before anything. And one day, just this idea of burner kicked into my mind. I do a lot of crime research and underbelly research and things like that. And the whole concept of a burner phone sort of collided with some other things that I had been working on. And I had just finished working on a project with John Bowden, and it was that pivotal moment where you look at as a writer going, okay, well, what's next? What am I working on next? And I had a couple of ideas I thought had some legs, and the idea came back to me, the thought came back to me about this article that I'd read. And I went out in my driveway. There was a baseball game going on in the park across the street from me. And I just sort of kind of let myself go and started working on some notes. And Burner exploded. I wrote probably 5 or 6 pages of longhand notes. And the next day I started writing. I was doing research at the same time. I was watching a lot of documentaries as I was sort of working into it. And I wrote the first draft in a month, which is really, really, really incredibly unusual for me. I normally never, ever write that fast. But I was obsessed with this story. I mean, it was a really unusual process for me. Most of the time, I felt like I was racing to type the words down to catch up. But it deals with 2 strong female characters. They're on opposite sides of life. One is very, very wealthy and has a perfect life. Perfect husband. Everything's great. She has a daughter in college. Everything's awesome. The other female character is on the verge of graduating medical school. Her life is just on the verge of kicking off. She knows that her boyfriend is going to propose. Life is just starting out to work out very well. And the wealthy woman's husband has an unfortunate accident, an unexpected accident where he dies. And she finds a hidden burner phone. And what she discovers after that makes these 2 women's lives collide together. So there's the initial origins, and there's the setup. Anything past that, I feel I would start to spoil certain plot lines.
we don't want to give spoilers here tonight. So
Yeah.
So you guys have any specific questions about the book, but not spoiler questions?
I mean, and Tom, having read the book, I know you might want to ask these questions from the fetal position. So
Yeah, I mean,
because it's a rough book.
My first question, Bob, is what the hell's wrong with you, man? I mean, no.
Well, I was an only child. I was left to my own devices quite often. That's why. That's what's wrong. Many things. Just ask Lucia. Lucia will tell you what's wrong with me. He's known me for a long time.
Because we talked about this on Into the Abyss before about the difference between horror and thriller, and sometimes, especially how horror does not have to be of a mystical monsters and goblins and ghosts and vampires. But
Sure.
I mean, I tell my kids this all the time: the biggest monsters in the world are us, humans.
Yeah.
And that really, I'm gonna say right now, the book really, it was just horrifying. Okay, I'm gonna say it right now, just horrifying. How people could care so little about each other. That they're not even, I mean, you wouldn't treat a mouse in the street the way you treat some people.
No. And what's, I'll tell you what's more disturbing is the documentaries that I watched, the case studies that I've read about real life incidents. I had to cut out a lot of initial things out of the novel. I probably cut out about 10 to 12,000 words that were really based upon real life counts and case studies, because I felt when I was done, those real life inspirations were too over the top. They were too extreme horror, even though that's not what I set out to write was extreme horror. It just happened to end up that way. But the things that I cut out were based on real life experiences, and they were so over the top. I felt they ended up being unbelievable in a work of fiction,
And that's
and
something.
that's what.
Oh, no, I was gonna say,
That's what
that's something I've heard other authors mention, is that sometimes you run into situations where you're trying to write something realistic, and you realize realistic seems too fictional.
It was some of the worst things. I mean, and it's one of those things. All of us, you guys, we all do research to a degree depending on what we're working on, and sometimes you find out and you end up knowing things like, man, I wish I didn't know that now. Like, you can't take it back. No, some of the case studies, I was just absolutely horrified. And, it was just one of those things, like I say, when I was working on this, when I was writing this, some of the moments, even now, I look at certain scenes and certain sections of Burner, and I'm like, man, I actually wrote that. Like, what the hell? Like, you're not alone. I look at that and go, what the hell is wrong with me? But at the time, it was channeling. Like, it didn't feel like writing. I was channeling something weird. It was a very bizarre scene, but the case studies that I read were just so over the top, unbelievable. Like you said, humans are the worst monster. I just couldn't believe some of the things that I was reading, but there was no way to deny that these things actually happened in real life.
And I think that actually brings up an interesting topic, especially for you being someone who doesn't usually write extreme horror. I think a lot of people, especially outside of horror, but even in some pockets of horror, like, how can someone write that, and what kind of person writes extreme horror? What are your perspectives having written Burner? And, what is that? Where does that come from, and what's the psychology of someone who writes something like that?
Well, that is actually an excellent question. I have really strong opinions on this kind of question. When you're talking about that kind of thing, and this question does come up an awful lot. I see it come up in a controversial setting of readers and other people online about the writers. What the hell is wrong with you? How could you possibly, you're this, you're that because you wrote this? No. The guy who wrote Lolita, it didn't mean that he was the character. Rudyard Kipling, he wasn't a mongoose, but he wrote about Ricky Tikki Tavi. Like, there's so many levels of these things. Stephen King, arguably one of the best-selling authors of all time, let alone horror, he was none of those things that he has written about. He's written about racists. He's written about murderers. He's written about any number of things. That is the work. It's not the author. As far as where that idea came from, I tend to lean much more toward horror and dark, gritty underbelly sort of crime. That's just sort of where I've always been drawn for the type of story that I want to write. But outside of that, if it's a good story, I don't care what genre it is, I'm going to write it. I've written a Western, I've written a rom-com, basically. I've written, it's what they call it in the field, but it's a chick lit book. Let's face it. And you know what? I had an absolute freaking blast writing that book because I enjoy the story. If you look at guys like Michael Crichton, he's written everything from, the original Westworld, Jurassic Park, to ER, to medical thrillers. He's all across the board. He was drawn to what story appealed to him. But in none of his character, you know. And I think it's a fear. It's a fear of mine because I see it come up a lot for people to say, you cannot write this story if you are X. And I think that's crap. I think if you're a writer and you do your research well, you're telling a story. And if you do your research well, you're going to be able to tell that story from the point of view of those characters. It's always that old thing, write what you know. Well, if I only wrote what I knew, that would be an absolutely boring collection of things that I would work on. I think that you can write beyond what you know, as long as you do your homework and you research a little bit. So, I don't know. That's just my 2 cents.
No, I agree with you, and I know. I think you kind of already covered one of the questions I had, which is a guy writing a story that's about 2 female perspectives because your main characters are both women. Writing 2 women characters going through tough situations. That's it's a challenge. I mean, writing a book like this, like Burner, is challenging regardless of who the point of view is. But writing it from 2 female points of view. What kind of drove you to in the writing of that, and what kind of inspired you in trying to bring out that point of view and making sure that you did justice to those points of view?
Well, I think as a writer, I think we all start to study other people, whether it's in an emergency room or it's in a coffee shop or a bar or a school or a job or wherever. I think we study dialogue. I think we study perspectives. So if you study that kind of thing long enough, you start to pay attention to how those type of personalities are going to handle certain situations. For me, for Burner, I wrote the first, I'd say first 5 pages. I wrote that about, I'd say 10 or 12 years ago. I sort of knew the start, and then I knew nothing else after that. So I sort of set it aside and was like, you know what? If it's important, if it's a big enough idea, if it has big enough legs, it'll come back to me, and I'll kind of work on it then. I have a billion files, as I'm sure a ton of writers do, on the same sort of situation.
Yep.
And eventually it came back, and I get the question a lot, as most writers do, how do you decide on what idea to work on? My response is always the one that screams the loudest. And at this particular day, at this particular time, this is the idea that screamed the loudest. And the 2 women, the two female characters, they just sort of developed on the fly. I mean, normally I have a little bit more of an outline, very, very loose, because I don't like to write the ending of an outline. I like to kind of do the first third. And after I do the first third as an outline, the rest sort of takes care of itself, and I flow with it and just roll with it. But the first, normally with this, I didn't do any outline at all. The characters sort of developed on the fly, and like I say, it was just such a strange, very strange process. Normally, I don't sort of sink into writing a project until I know how the main character thinks, how they would react if they go into a bank or a grocery store or a bar, or, I kind of need to know that sort of background, so I'm really familiar with them. This was an entirely different project for me. It was, like I said, I said earlier, a lot of times it was like I was typing as fast as I could to catch up to what was going on. But I hope, I mean, the reviews that's still coming in are so positive, and I'm proud of the book. I really am, and I just hope that I've done justice to the 2 female characters. That was really important to me, to make sure that their character arcs stay true to who they are as a character. to who they are as a person, but I just wanted to make them believable and not fall flat. So
I don't have to say, I think the scariest thing was you were just shining a light into an aspect of society worldwide that a lot of people don't want to see happen. And it totally reminded me of how one of our coworkers used to work for a politician who helped pass the Human Trafficking Act for the federal government. And I'm just
oh
thinking,
wow.
yeah, I mean, honestly, I think I should go talk to him to get his information because, like you said, some of the stories or some of the facts you went over, just you couldn't imagine actually happening. I'm thinking, Kevin, you're gonna be surprised by this. Remember, it was George Phillips.
Okay.
He did the research on this stuff, and he must have been exposed to some horrendous things.
Hmm.
And I mean, you have to wonder. I mean, especially as a writer, would you say like, do have you seen a lot of writers kind of go into that dark underbellyness and come out the other side like you have, I guess?
There's definitely been a few. I know Rath James White. He was working on his novel Succulent Prey.
Oh, okay.
He created an online handle. Nobody knows your nickname or whatever, who you are. He got onto some very underbelly message boards. He was doing some research on cannibalism, and he had the same sort of reaction I did. He became fascinated early, then he became quickly disgusted, and then he couldn't take enough showers to clean off what that feeling was at the end. But it's one of the most frightening things that to discover is that this sort of underbelly, terrible, thing is going on, and it's going on around you, whether people want to believe it's there or not. I mean, where I'm at in York, Pennsylvania, I live in sort of this weird intersection. Philadelphia is to my northeast. Baltimore is to my south. Lancaster, Pennsylvania is to the east. It's this weird juncture of if you are put into a van here, you're gone. And unless someone sees it happening within a few hours, you are gone somewhere else, and you, with all likelihood, you could never be seen again. And that is a terrifying thought. And this is not the only juncture in the United States that's like this. 60 Minutes did a report maybe 10 years ago about this region. And this isn't a high crime region. It's just that it is easily accessible and easily escapable.
Yeah, and you have this great line. Actually, it's the very last line you have in the kind of the synopsis or whatever where you write at the end of the book. And the world we live in is full of plain white vans.
Yeah, absolutely. How many of those? And here's the thing: when you finish this novel, I've had reviewers and fans message me and say, "I did not pay attention to this until I finished this book, and I've realized just on my 20-minute tour, it is ridiculous how many white vans I pass on the highway to the way to my job, and no one pays them a second guess.
Yeah,
No one pays them any attention."
I know people.
I'm so thrilled. Like I say, it was a very tough novel. Yeah.
No, I was gonna
What's that?
let you speak. I'll speak after you speak.
Go ahead, Bob.
Oh no, I was gonna say, I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud of it, even though it was such a unusual, difficult novel to research. But I'm really proud of it. You know, and it's unusual that it's been out for a little over a year now, and I still have having people, and just in the past week, say, I know it's February, but this is my favorite novel of 2022. And to see that kind of stuff, I mean, it's just like, okay, well, that's cool. You know, it's an odd thing for people to say, I enjoyed reading this novel. And I see that come up again and again because it is a difficult novel to say, I enjoyed it. You say, it was worth the experience. I know it's a weird thing to say, I enjoyed it, because it is a very, very brutal novel to work on. And yeah, I need to sort of cleanse my soul a little bit after this one, which is why I went to a supernatural novel.
Yeah. No, I was gonna say. I mean, the question often gets asked of writers are like, "Why would you write something like this?" But authors write this stuff, and people read it. And so I think if we turn that question around, why do people read it? Oftentimes, the response you see is that they actually feel better having taken that time to look at what you don't necessarily want to look at, but you feel better knowing what's out there and understanding it. Because in horror, with any sort of monster story, when you can see the monster, it becomes a little less terrifying, and you can respond a little bit better. I think that's why we people tend to look at things like crime dramas or murder, like real life murder mysteries. People like to watch these things because you feel a little bit more safe having analyzed what's out there. It's not pleasant, but but you're ready for the next instance.
I think Stephen King calls that naming the monster.
Yeah,
naming the monster. Yep. Naming them, you give a name. Yep. So.
And so it's something that's somewhat cathartic and also kind of very human to be prepared for what's out there. I think it's odd that the question always gets asked of the author, why do you write this? But no one asks, why do you read this? And I think the answer comes back of let's be prepared. And there's a connection there between those writers and those readers.
Also, too, there's something to be said for just like you said, the catharsis. Like I'll describe some of the plots of some of the things I'm working on to some of my senior students, and I have this one senior student who's like, I'll describe the plot, and then she'll look at me with really big eyes and be like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yes, I am okay," because it's a long paper now. This is what keeps me. This is what keeps me okay. Is writing about all this stuff, all this darkness that I have inside, or the darkness in the world.
Yeah.
I put it on paper, and that's how I stay. Okay?
I'm going to another classroom.
All right. Do we have any parting questions for Bob before we return to pieces?
No, I'm just going to say compliment, Bob. I'm going to make sure my wife reads this. She is into this type of stuff. But, no, it was really good. I mean, this is one of the few books where I would read a book and then put it down. This one I just read straight through.
I'll have to say also, too, as far as a reader, so let me rephrase that. Obviously, having been a book reviewer for many years and now being an acquisitions editor for Cemetery Dance, I'm still having a hard time saying that. But being an acquisitions editor for Cemetery Dance, obviously my preferences take a backseat to the quality of the work. For example, I've accepted ghost stories so far for Cemetery Dance. I've accepted folk horror. I'm currently reading a book right now that is an homage to 70s exploitation grindhouse movie theaters, and it's really well written. So as far as the editor side of me, I don't have a preference. I'm like, it's got to be well written. That's all I care about. And of course, as a reader, I have my preferences, and I would have to say that generally speaking, though I appreciate what extreme horror does, extreme horror is not generally my preference. But Bob, you handled it in such a way that it was horrible and terrifying. I don't know if this makes any sense. It was horrible and terrifying, but you handled it in a strangely beautiful way. If that makes any sense. Like, this is a terrible, horrible story, but it was just handled so well.
Yeah, I agree. Extreme horror is not my preferred genre either, but I will say one thing that bothers me with extreme horror is oftentimes kind of let's see how much blood we can spill. Look at all these gore.
Yeah.
There's the lowest common denominator in every subject.
It's like look I can put it visually out there. But I think, Bob, what's wonderful about Burner is that you kept the humanity in it. That's right. I think that's what's often missing for me personally with extreme horror is the humanity of the situation is not often there. The few times I have actually enjoyed extreme horror is when it actually reminds us these are human beings, and I think you nailed that.
Yeah. Well, guys, I truly appreciate that. Send all therapy bills to Kevin Lucia.
Yeah.
Please tell your wife your wife to send therapy bills to Lucia. No, it is one of those things that when I was writing Burner, they were intentionally short chapters, because I felt because of the topic matter was so heavy duty and brutal at times, I did want the reader to be able to have the opportunity to take a breath in between chapters. But at the same time, the short chapters, in the middle of editing, I actually slowed myself down, I think, in order to make sure that I included those aspects of humanity that you were talking about, Brian. Mm-hmm. Because I didn't want it. The last thing I wanted to do was to let it slide over into the gore fest extreme horror for the sake of being a gore fest. That's not what I wanted to do with this at all. I did want to hit people right in the no-no spot. I did want to do that. I wanted them to...
Show me on the doll where Bob Ford touched you.
You got it.
And
that's
then hit
right.
you.
Kevin, I got your doll right here. Right here.
That is creepy.
You know what? Here's the thing. John Bowden made this for me.
He made it. That's awesome.
That rat
And
bastard
terrifying.
sent me his novel that is coming out later this year.
Hi, Henry.
And I can't say anything more because it's so terrible. It actually, it's the worst thing I've ever read in one of John Bowden's novels. It's so utterly disturbing. So I get a cardboard box package in the mail, and I'm like, I never get anything from anyone. You send me your books, Lucia.
Yep.
But I never get anything. So this box shows up, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I open it up, and there it is, staring in the middle of the damn cardboard box under tissue paper.
That's horrifying.
This kitten,
That's awesome.
freaking kitten thing. He custom made it. He searched around for a white stuffed cat thing and got a baby doll head and custom made it just to screw with me.
So
I don't know what I'm going to do to him at some point, but it's going to be bad.
Send a baby doll body with a cat's face.
that is
Yes.
amazing. That is amazing.
And when you read this novel when it comes out, you're going to be, that son of a bitch, Bob Ford has an existing one. It's going to haunt you really badly. I'm just going to say that.
So we want to give a shout out to Bob, but we'll also give a shout out to John Bowden.
Oh, John Bowden is the
John
goat.
Bowden is
He's the goat.
Look him up as well. John Bowden's amazing, and that is fantastic. I'm glad you have that on this show.
Oh, well, it's here as motivation because whenever I'm feeling sleepy, all I got to do is turn my head. I'm like, holy shit! No, I need I'm back on it. I'm good. I'm all good.
All
It's
right.
better than a Red Bull.
Awesome.
On that note, we're going to jump into pieces, and I think what we're
Read
going to
Bob
do, read Bob Ford. I think what we're going to do is we're just going to plunge right on to the end. So back to pieces. So we'll be back here, folks, at the end of the show.
Excellent.
All right.
All right, thank you, Bob.
Thank you, guys.
I'm so confused.
At the end
Back
of
at ending.
pieces, that's going to go up the number of top 3 endings I've seen in the
I
last
don't know what that
year.
was.
Tom and Chuck, what are your thoughts at this point?
Wow.
I'm so confused.
That's all I got to say is wow on that. I mean, first of all, okay, it's always the whole ending with a twist or a possible sequel, but the whole let me grab your crotch and pop your
And how was it
nuts?
alive? Like it became sentient. Was there black magic going on that we didn't know
I
about?
don't even know if that was a professor or Frankenstein
That's
lady.
that's a foolish question. That doesn't matter. It's tiny horror. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't apply.
No, it was the Frankenstein lady. They were female claws.
I mean, the first 99.9% of the movie, I'm like, this is actually surprisingly well written. I mean, it's schlocky, but they put in effort. Like, they actually tried to make a decent movie.
Oh,
And then the last 0.1%, like, what was
But
that?
the thing is though is that ending is what makes these movies a thing of beauty. Like Bob said, it doesn't matter. All that matters is everyone. All that matters is everyone going like that at the end. That's all that matters.
And that's why it's impossible not to laugh at some of the dialogue. Like the one guy, the cop, is like, "Do you smoke?" "No." "Why? Does it bother you?" "Why are you asking if I don't smoke? Why are you asking that? Why
Would
are
you like
following
some Wendy's?
Yeah.
Or better yet, this is my kung fu professor.
That's great.
Kung Fu Professor was amazing.
Or let's not forget, because obviously the guy who unfortunately had that incident at the end seemed to be sexing up all the ladies. That one girl's even like, "I'll let you gag me."
That is.
Then we saw a little Pepe there.
And little Pepe had a bad day at the end.
I mean, there's a comment during the movie that someone said about all the pauses during the movie that actually makes this movie perfect for, if not for the nudity, this movie would be perfect for MST3K.
Oh yeah, for wrist tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how about there in our audience? Any comments on this movie? Yeah,
It is horror.
I know, right? It's a party and everyone's invited, and someone passed out LSD too. So, that was good stuff.
Yeah, now we have nightmares of some
Ooh.
Frankenstein lady ripping her penises.
That's right.
It's like the Bride of Frankenstein, just like
Well,
Just
it's
coming out of
1982, so the cocaine was flowing. The director's like, "I'm going to mess with these people."
Oh, that was a good time. That was fun. Yeah. All right, so folks at home, we highly recommend. I definitely say we give our wholehearted recommendation for pieces, but they should alcohol should accompany that.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
So
really.
before our last break, you were going to ask Bob about Scares That Care.
Yeah, Bob, you're going to be the Scares and Cares, right? You're doing a class on live readings, right?
Yeah. I'm gonna do it's a course. We're gonna break it up a little bit, and I'm gonna get all the attendees. I want to see how they read, if they've ever done a live reading, and the goal is to just improve. If you've done a live reading before, if you haven't, to get the best possible performance out of your next live reading. So yeah, that's the goal. I've developing the course and been working on the worksheets and handouts. It's going to be a really interactive course. I'm really excited to see what people bring to the table. So and do the best that I can to give back.
And I will say, for those who watch this, Bob hasn't heard this. I maybe heard some of it, but everyone says behind his back how amazing Bob is at live readings.
There's no better person to be teaching a live reading seminar than Bob.
Yeah. Bob is amazing.
Except for maybe Tom Montilone. But Bob learned everything he did from Tom. Yeah.
Well, and honestly, Tom was a massive inspiration. He was one of the most instrumental live readers that I saw early on that I watched and was like, man, that's how you're supposed to do this.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it just kind of went from there. So, no, I'm really excited. I think it's going to be a really fun workshop. It's not going to be boring. It's not going to be, it's just going to be fun and casual. And again, it's one of those things. People who do live readings or live speeches, that's one of the most, that's one of the most frightening things that most people list. A lot of people list that over death, surprisingly.
I saw
And it's just one of those things is like, man, that's not necessary. Let's take a breath and relax a little bit. We're gonna kickstart some things and make people feel a lot more comfortable and do what we got to do. So it'll be a blast. Looking forward to it.
That will be it.
Alongside that is a terrifying thing is like stopping somebody on the street to talk to them about something. You know, just like you're a salesman, a missionary, just stopping some random stranger and like, hey, I got something I want to sell you. You know, like that's terrifying.
Sure,
as
sure.
well.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now just imagine Bob telling this movie in his live reading. Then the hand reached up and tore off his penis.
Well, see, here's the thing. I was dying because I knew how this was going to end.
Yeah.
And I was watching all of you, and I knew I was like, oh, it's getting close. And I'm just watching your reactions. I'm like, there it is. There's the reaction right there. That was just dying.
So if anyone can
No,
make
it's just-
AuthorCon in Williamsburg, Virginia,
April 1st through the 3rd.
April 1st
Yeah.
to 3rd, Bob will be
Yeah.
doing a class on live readings. I will tell you, Bob, if I'm not there in the class, I definitely want to be. If I'm not there, it's because I'm selling books.
No, hey, nope. I completely understand it. Trust me. And, you know, no, it's just going to be a fun, great weekend no matter what. So,
Yep.
no, I'm still looking forward to it.
All right.
Very cool. All right, so this has been another installment of Into the Abyss Movie Watch, and all of our viewers who will see this later on this week, go buy Burner by Bob Ford. Buy anything else by Bob Ford as well. Also, look up C.W. Breyer's works, and I have a few books out there as well. So thank you for joining us, and what's our usual model?
Eat, drink, and be scary.
All right.